Dave, I just checked in and apparently there are technical difficulties. That's why nothing's going on.
Sean, are we good? Okay. All
Ah.
right, folks. Sorry about that. I believe we are all set now, and we are streaming on YouTube. So at this time, I'm going to call to order the public hearing in KCC docket number 26 EKCE 148 STG. My name is Andrew French. I'm the chairman of the Kansas Corporation Commission, and joining me tonight are my colleagues Dwight Keene, sitting here beside me, and Commissioner Annie Keither is joining us over Zoom. To make participation in this hearing as convenient as possible, we are, of course, holding this hearing in person tonight, and we are also holding it virtually through Zoom. We are also live streaming now on YouTube. The docket was initiated by Evergy to request approval of a line siting permit for a 345 kV transmission line, approximately 133 miles in length. The proposed line would begin at the Buffalo Flats substation near Garden Plain, Kansas, and end at the Delaware substation near Delaware, Oklahoma. The line would be located in Sedgwick, Sumner, Cowley, and Chautauqua counties. Tonight's hearing will operate in two parts. The first part of the hearing is just an informational session. You'll hear brief presentations from representatives of Evergy explaining their application. And you will also hear a presentation from our KCC staff members explaining their role in the line siting process. After those presentations, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about the application and this process. And at the conclusion of that Q&A, we'll take a short break. In the second part of the hearing, that's where you will have an opportunity to make public comments on the record for the commission to consider in this docket. If you'd like to address the commission with comments, please complete the sign-in sheet with the commission's public affairs staff if you have not already done so, and I believe that is out in the lobby. In addition to the comments made tonight, the commission is also accepting public comments on our website, by mail, or by calling our public affairs office. Comments will be accepted through 5 p.m. on January 23rd. All comments carry equal weight with the commission, regardless of how they're provided, whether they're provided in person tonight or whether you provide them through one of those other forums. If you need to leave tonight's meeting early, or you aren't ready to make a comment, or you're watching on YouTube, we hope you'll consider one of the alternative methods of making a comment. So we will now begin with the informational session, and our first presenter is Steve Vetch, Vice President of Transmission for Evergy.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me okay in the back? Very good. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us here tonight. My name is Steve Vetch. I'm the Vice President of Transmission at Evergy. My responsibilities include the construction, the maintenance, and the operation of Evergy's transmission system, and will include the oversight of the construction of the Buffalo Flats to Delaware transmission line. I'm flanked here on my right by Andy Rechek. Andy is the Senior Director of all large projects at Evergy. And on my left by Cale Lovelace, and Cale Lovelace is the project manager directly responsible and most closely managing the Buffalo Flats to Delaware transmission project.
I'm not an IT guy.
Do we have Evergy's PowerPoint?
Was it up? There we go. Okay, thank you. We also have several other experts in the room tonight. We have experts from permitting, from real estate, engineering. Should during the question period of the hearing, you all ask us a question up here that we're unable to answer, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to reach out to our colleagues here in the front row and they'll be able to assist. I'm hopeful that we'll get every question that's asked of us tonight answered here. Brief background on the project. We, Evergy, are a member of the Southwest Power Pool. The Southwest Power Pool, or SPP as it's often referred to, is a regional transmission organization responsible for grid management in Kansas and 13 other Midwestern states. The SPP coordinates the flow of electricity across the entirety of this 14-state transmission network. Planning the transmission network in SPP is done through a process called Integrated Transmission Planning, or ITP. In 2024, the ITP identified reliability projects needed to resolve system overloads and voltage issues and prevent future load shed during winter storm conditions. The SPP identified multiple individual projects needed to resolve overloading and voltage instability in southern Kansas and northeast Oklahoma, which were both present during winter conditions in 2021 and in 2022. One of the projects is the Buffalo Flats to Delaware 345 kV line. The project is a 163-mile 345 kV transmission line extending from southern Kansas to northeast Oklahoma. When the line is complete, it will create an interconnection between Evergy's transmission system and that of AEP in Oklahoma, giving us access to their resources and them access to ours. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Cale to discuss how over the past 10 months we have determined what I would call our preferred route, but more accurately, what we feel is our least intrusive route.
Okay, folks, my name is Cale Elvis. I'm a transmission substation construction project manager, and I'm not an IT specialist right now. We're running about 3 or 4 slides ahead here, so I apologize. Yeah, yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
go back a few
Yeah.
slides?
Yeah, sorry, folks. I swear this makes a whole lot more sense when I speak in order. Okay. Okay, forward 1 slide, please. All right, go slide 5. There we go. Okay, so I'm a transmission substation construction project manager. My job is to take projects from an idea or a high-level scope, define that scope, develop project schedule, budget, manage contracts for construction, and basically see the project from beginning to end in full execution. For this project, as Steve mentioned, it's a roughly 133-mile 345 kV line. We began with a routing study that we started in March. First step in the routing study was identifying our endpoints. Our western endpoint is the Buffalo Flats substation, close to Garden Plain. And then our interconnect location with American Electric Power, AEP in Oklahoma, is down close to the Caney, Kansas area, a little southwest. From here, we set our study area. That was about 3,200 square miles, fully encapsulated Chautauqua County, almost all of Cowley County, most of Sumner County, and then southwest Sedgwick County. Next slide, please. And here's a visual of our study area. Next slide. Okay, so from here, once we established our study area, we had to develop a routing network. First step in that is identifying constraints, and constraints, simply put, are places that you can't go. For example, homes, we avoid homes first and foremost. Airports, reservoirs or wetlands, cemeteries, center pivots. That's just to name a few. There are several more constraints out there that we utilized in actually identifying areas that we could not go. Once we identified those constraints, we basically looked at routing opportunities. And that's more or less areas where we don't have constraints. And we try to develop individual segments along the whole length of the line, or in the entire study area, that were potential routes. Next slide, please. So this is a visual of our entire routing network. We had 195 individual routing segments that developed 1.1 million, give or take, potential routes to get us from basically Goddard all the way down close to Caney in the southeast corner. Routes varied. We had some routes as short as about 125 miles, and the longest routes were about 155 miles. Next slide, please. So once we developed the whole routing network, we held open houses. We were in Sedan and Winfield in late July, last week of July, and then we were in Wellington and Goddard in the first week of August. We invited every landowner within 1,000 feet of any of the potential routes to these open houses. That resulted in over 4,500 parcels for the whole routing network. I think the whole routing network was nearly 900 miles. But that ended up with 4,500 parcels, give or take, and about 2,400 landowners who got invited to those open houses. At the open house, we met with each landowner, provided questionnaires, answered a lot of different questions, and told them about what the project need was and what the line would like, any questions y'all had. Then asked you guys to fill out some questionnaires that basically weighted the importance of certain factors of the line in how it would route and be close to you and your property. And then we utilized those questionnaire results from everybody to develop weights for each one of these factors. Next slide, please. So overall, when we scored this, we had about 30 different scoring factors. The 11 listed on the right here are per the KCC, and we followed these 11, but we had some additional factors as well that we used to actually develop our score for the whole line. Each one of those factors received a weight of 1 to 10, 1 being little or no impact property, 10 being maximum impact property. So 10 would be proximity to households, for example. And then a few examples I got listed here, but are also shown on the right side. Next slide, please. So as kind of mentioned earlier, we had 1.1 million, give or take, routing combinations for this entire area. And then what we did was we took each one of those factors, weighted, and then scored it for each individual segment of the line, and then put that together to score a full route from beginning to end. And like I said, we scored 1.1 million of them. Scores had a huge range, and this is a little bit confusing, but a bad score is positive and a good score is negative. Negative 105 was our best score that we had, and it's right down in this area. And then positive 115 was the worst score that we had. And in general, those were northern routes that were in more heavily populated areas. The top 10 routes all scored between 103 or negative 103 and negative 105. So it's pretty tight bunching there for our best options. And then, one thing that we got feedback on is where we have existing transmission lines, we tried to parallel those. That's some feedback we got from farmers where we had opportunities to parallel lines out on the western portion of the route. Next step was reviewing every single one of those routes thoroughly. And next slide, please. So what you see here is kind of confusing, but the yellow routes here are the routing network, all 195 segments. And then in purple are all of the top 10 routes. And you see a lot of overlapping here. It's because the top 10 routes had mostly common corridors with a little bit of variation. And then from here, next slide, we chose our preferred route shown here in yellow. So as you can see geographically, the top 10 routes were very, very similar. And then we closely evaluated the top 10 routes and then went with this one. Next slide, please. So, what we're here for, all lines in Kansas over 200 kV and over 5 miles in length, we have to receive a siting permit. And this is the siting permit application process, is getting you guys' feedback on this. We submitted the siting application on November 14th, and if approved by the KCC, we would hope to have that permit in hand on May 14th. Next slide, please. A little bit about the project schedule. So if we do get approval and we receive this siting permit, we plan to design and build the line from the west end to the east. So Sedgwick County, then Sumner, Cowley, and then Chautauqua. We would begin surveying on private property as early as June of this year. Engineering will start, as soon as we receive approval this summer, roll through the fall of 28. Easement acquisitions would start as early as this fall and roll through the end of 2028. Vegetation clearing as early as fall of 27. So about a year and a half, 2 years out from now. Go through the summer 29. And again, working west to east. So on this end, we'd probably be doing vegetation clearing in 28. And then line construction starting on the west end in the spring of 28, completing on the east end of the line over here in Chautauqua County by the fall of 29. And then following construction, we've usually got a little bit of cleanup and right-of-way restoration, some reseeding and access cleanup that'll usually roll through about 6 months after the project's energized. Next slide, please. And then here's just a little bit of information, contact information, more or less. We've got a project email, buffaloflats@evergy.com. We've got a project phone number that gets you into our real estate group. And then we have a project website listed right here. And I just learned how to use a QR code, but if you know how to, you can scan that thing right there. I think that completes this.
All right, thank you. Looks like we are ready for staff's presentation. And I think IT is going to need to pull that up. But once that's pulled up, I'm going to turn it over to our other presenter tonight, who is Madison Hain, and she is litigation counsel representing the KCC's technical staff.
Thank you.
Testing.
Well, thank you, Chair French, for that introduction. I guess I'll go ahead and begin. As he stated, my name is Madison Hain, and I am an attorney for the Kansas Corporation Commission. Joining me at this table this evening is also Justin Grady, who is the Director of Utilities at the KCC. Tonight, I will give a high-level overview of what the Commission is, how it operates, and then some details about Evergy's application to construct this new transmission line known as Buffalo Flats to Delaware. The Kansas Corporation Commission is a state agency that is headed by 3 commissioners. The commissioners collectively act as a body in determining matters that come before them. The current commissioners are Chair Andrew French, Commissioner Dwight Keene, and Commissioner Annie Keither. The commissioners are appointed by the governor and serve staggered 4-year terms. The commission has jurisdiction to oversee a number of industries, including electric, natural gas, and telecommunications. To assist the commission in this role, the commissioners employ a staff of professionals who are available to provide guidance and input. There is a procedure in place at the commission to determine the merits of cases that come before them. Administrative hearings at the commission look very similar to a trial that you would see in a district court. The commissioners act as judges by hearing and weighing the evidence, and witnesses testify before them. Then the commissioners issue orders that can be appealed to higher courts. The commission's technical staff, who are my clients, act as a party to the case. They develop and defend their own independent position, recognizing that their duty is owed to the state of Kansas and the general public. This slide is a visualization of how this is set up. At the top are the 3 commissioners. In a formal proceeding like this line setting application, there are different parties, including the utility, the commission's technical staff, and numerous interveners who represent a variety of interests. Interveners could be landowners or electric utilities who are affected by the construction of the transmission line, and various other entities. I think we got it. As I mentioned, the commission technical staff are state of Kansas employees who have a tremendous amount of professional knowledge and training in fields such as accounting, economics, engineering, and financial analysis. During proceedings before the commission, staff advocates on behalf of the general public, which is another way of saying that their job is to balance the interests of all utility customers, the long-term health of the utility, and the state of Kansas. Staff has the challenging job of objectively evaluating all opinions in this case, and then providing an independent, neutral, balanced recommendation that furthers the public interest of the state as a whole. Now that I've provided an overview of the commission and the commission staff's roles in this proceeding, I want to highlight a few points about the specific application before the commission in this case. On November 14th, 2025, Evergy filed an application seeking commission approval of a siting permit to construct a new approximately 133-mile, 355 kV transmission line proposed to travel through western Sedgwick, Sumner, Cowley, and Chautauqua counties in Kansas. The public can access Evergy's full application and the associated pre-filed testimony on the Kansas Corporation Commission's website, and I will explain more details about how you can do so at the end of my presentation. As the representative for Evergy already explained, they have selected their preferred route for this project. The yellow line on this map illustrates the proposed route of the transmission line. Evergy selected this route after it held multiple rounds of open house sessions throughout 2025 and received input from landowners and residents located in the vicinity of the potential route, as well as after receiving input from state and federal agencies and other public interest groups. In its application and its accompanying testimony, Evergy represented that the proposed transmission line has several benefits. The first of these benefits includes addressing past load shed events, like those experienced across much of the country during Winter Storm Elliott, and to address voltage concerns that take place during other severe weather winter events. An ancillary benefit of this line would be to relieve congestion and to levelize energy prices. Finally, a benefit of the line would be to add resiliency benefits to the interconnected transmission system. Now that Evergy's application for this proposed transmission line has been filed, Commission staff is undergoing the process of conducting a thorough independent review. During this investigation, staff reviews the routing study and determines if the process used sound reasoning to determine the proposed route, and if all the necessary factors are included. Staff also reviews the potential impacts of the route and gives their final recommendation. After staff completes their investigation, they will submit written testimony that indicates their position on the application. Staff's role is not to help one party over another, but rather to provide independent assistance to the commissioners to balance competing interests and evaluate the total impact of the application on the public interest. After staff conducts its investigation and files its expert recommendation, it is up to the three commissioners to make the final decision, taking all the evidence in the record before them into consideration. The commission is the ultimate decision maker regarding the necessity for and the reasonableness of the location of the proposed route of a new electric transmission line. Kansas statutes require that the commission consider the benefit to both consumers in Kansas and consumers outside the state and economic development benefits in Kansas. In the summer of 2023, the Commission opened a docket asking for staff and all interested stakeholders to investigate a set of principles and priorities to be used in future siting proceedings taking place in Kansas. The goal of this investigation docket was for the Commission to ultimately approve a set of criteria to guide the determination of the reasonableness and necessity of any given line siting application. The purpose of this slide is to highlight the fact that this investigation into line siting criteria was a multi-year process that the Commission undertook to guide the process for reviewing line siting applications. In early 2025, the Commission issued an order adopting guidelines for transmission line siting criteria and priorities. This order is a precedential document that can also be viewed by the public on the Commission's website. The remaining deadlines for this docket are shown here on the screen. Under the current schedule, the public comment period will end at 5 o'clock on January 23rd. And so if you intend to submit a written comment in this docket, you must submit your comment by that date, January 23rd. Staff appreciates and encourages public comment on this matter. Next, staff and other interveners will file written testimony on the Commission's website by January 29th. The next slide will explain how you can access that pre-filed written testimony. On February 3rd, the parties will have an opportunity to file cross-answering testimony, and on February 9th, Evergy will have the opportunity to file further testimony in rebuttal to the previously filed testimony of staff and interveners. From March 11th through March 12th, the Commission will hold an evidentiary hearing on Evergy's request. The Commission will offer a live stream of this evidentiary hearing on their YouTube page. Finally, a Commission order deciding this matter will be issued by May 13th, 2026. I want to leave you with information about how you can submit a public comment in the docket and follow the case on our website. I will leave the screen up, so you should feel free to take a picture of it if you would like to, or write down this information. The first way you can make a comment is by speaking here in person tonight following these presentations. Additionally, you can send your comments to our public affairs office by submitting them online, by mail, or by phone. The information for each of these options is on the screen. You can follow these proceedings on our website by going to our docket filings tab, entering the docket number, which again is 26EKCE148STG. And there you can see all filings that have been made in this docket and that will continue to be made over the next few months. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We look forward to hearing any comments that you may have.
Great, thank you. Okay, now that we've had the presentations, and don't worry, we're going to get that slide back up at some point. Also, I believe all that information that was on that slide is on some handouts that our public affairs staff have out in the lobby. So if you missed any of that, there will be other ways to get it tonight. Now that we've had the opportunity for presentations, we want to open an opportunity for any questions about the presentations. I will stress that this part is distinct and separate from the public comment session, which we will have later. This is just an opportunity for questions about the application and understand the role that the commission staff and the commission plays in this. So for those here in the room, if you'd like to ask a question, I believe we have a microphone that's being set up in the middle of the room, and you may just go up to that microphone. If there's more than one of you, form a nice line. If you're participating on Zoom and you have a question, if you can use the raise hand feature under the react button, I will try to call on folks in the order that I see hands online. So if anyone has a question, now is your opportunity. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, if you'd go to the microphone, that way the folks online can hear you. Thank you. And if you give us your name to start. Thank you.
Rodney Shaw, I'm the chair of the county commission here. I would like to know, do you have a sample contract or anything like that that would be presented to the people here so we can see a contract of how this will be handled?
I think that's probably directed to Evergy.
Rodney, are you talking about an easement?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about, do you have a contract of easements? Yes.
I don't believe we've got an easement, our template easement document here today. No.
So, but in the past, you've put lines through other places and stuff. Would you have a sample of those contracts? You see what I'm saying? I'd like to see ahead of time so that when you guys approach us, that I can know what to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you hit me in the face with something, I don't know how to ask you back.
Yeah, Matt, we can absolutely provide you guys a template of our standard, and it always deviates from that for landowner to landowner as details get worked out, but we've got a standard easement template that we can provide you.
Okay. And number two, is it possible that you can use my easement for collateral for a loan to do another project somewhere else?
I've never heard of that before.
Well, if I Google it on my phone, it pops up pretty quick. So I'm concerned that it's all over every radio station alive that transmission lines can be used as collateral to make loans for you guys to do different projects. Now, I could be fooled, and I definitely could be wrong, because I'm wrong every day. My wife tells me so. But what I'm saying is this is a big project for us. And
I'll just say it's not our intention to try to fool anybody. I don't believe the easements can be used for collateral for anything. We haven't done that in the past. We don't plan on doing it in the future. To your first question about can we provide you an easement documentation in advance? Absolutely. It's somewhat boilerplate language. As Cale said, it'll change a little bit from landowner to landowner, but it's not anything that's really going to look any different from parcel to parcel to parcel, but like the name and the legal description. But yeah, your second question, I'm just not that familiar with it, so I can't say with absolute certainty. But I am not aware of any easements that we use for any collateral for anything.
Okay, and I'll get out of this gentleman's way, but the other third thing is, on the length of easements. When you provide this contract to us for an easement, how long will that contract be? For it to be 1,000 years, 99 years, or will we do it every 10 years with you?
Yeah, it'll be a permanent easement. There won't be any renewal of the easement. Once we come to an agreement, the easement will be as long as the line's there. If the line is retired at some point in the future and we release the easement, then that can happen. But that will be many days from this day if that is to occur.
Right, right. And
Okay,
and the county roads will be, with all the heavy truck traffic, the county roads will be, we're gonna work.
Yeah, we are very good and have a very good reputation about cleaning up the mess we make. We'll do that here as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
before we go to the next question in the room, I've got a hand up on Zoom. And so, Mark Appleby, I've asked you to unmute and you may ask your question.
Great. Thanks very much for providing this access. Just two kind of quick questions.
Hold on, just a moment. We're not picking you up on the microphones.
Oh, how am I doing now? No good? Any good? No?
No, we don't hear you.
Okay, it's okay. I'll figure another way.
All right, we're going to go to the room for the next question, and then we'll circle back to Mr. Appleby. All right, go ahead. Just state your name and.
Gary Teague, sorry about that. Hey, I want to thank you guys for having this public hearing. We appreciate you coming out here to rural Kansas. We know sometimes it doesn't seem like we're that important, but this is certainly a big issue here, and we appreciate you taking the time to listen. My question is more procedurally in this section, because I think that's actually what we're talking about. And it goes to your scoring, so they talked about a scoring system, and they picked the route that has I think has the best score or combination of scores. And so my question to you guys was, how much weight does the commission put into those actual scores?
I'm going to turn to our staff for that.
Testing. Hello. Okay. Hi. My name is Justin Grady. I'm the Director of Utilities. So we can, it's difficult to, there's like 10 different specific criteria. And, and I think Evergy mentioned the one criteria that gets the most weighting is proximity to residential homes.
You bet.
And then, we also, you'll have to forgive me. I can't remember the specific weighting for each of the 10 criteria, but I can get it to you.
Well,
But
I'm
real
not as
quick
worried.
at high level.
Sorry.
Just real quick, it's the three biggest principal priorities of us when we went through that general line sighting investigation was generally we need to do your best to keep the line away from residential homes. It needs to parallel transportation corridors to the maximum extent possible. And it needs to stay on the border of property lines to the extent possible, right? Those are really the highest level three, the biggest priorities. And then, of course, there was oil and gas protocols and provisions to protect oil and gas infrastructure and farming infrastructure when there's irrigation for center pivots. We don't want to put a line right over the top of the center pivot. So there is a scoring mechanism that was established and agreed to, took 12 months to work out and get it established. But ultimately, that's what the commission approved. And that's how we will evaluate. Evergy's went through their individual assessment and weighting of those scores, but we're going to do a separate independent evaluation of that. Hopefully that helps.
You bet. And that's based off what you talked about. And so when I got the impression when you guys were talking about it, that one of the things, this public hearings real important, public hearings are very important, and you take into consideration the impact, not just the impact of landowners, but landowners' preferences. So if a landowner says, hey, I'd really like it to be on this side or further away from my house or not over here by a barn, you took that into account. But really, you may have a scoring system and you may have a scoring system and they're similar, but they're not ideal. And it's more about proximity to those things that you mentioned than consumer preferences or landowner preferences, correct?
I would say that our process would be first to evaluate the ranking system and the priorities that we established in that general investigation. And then the second would be, you know, we're here tonight. I mean, you
bet.
probably spoke to several of us. I mean, it is important, very important for you, for individual landowners that have specific comments, when we recommend put as much detail as you possibly can in the written comments. Even if you speak tonight, the written comments are very important, because I can assure you that the people that when we put together our final evaluation, our recommendation, we'll read every one of those comments multiple times, and we will address them in some form or fashion. You know, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations out there in the hallway. We certainly can't make any promises. You know, we got to look at it, we got to evaluate it. But ultimately, if you go through all of the scoring and there's still something that just doesn't pass the smell test, then we have the flexibility to recommend and say, look, for this segment of the line, we just don't think this is reasonable, right? This just is not reasonable, and we think they need to move the line. We certainly have that authority.
bet.
Ultimately, it's these guys that make the final decision.
I think the point I was getting to is, so we're all busy. And so you come out and you have a meeting maybe 6 months ago. And at that point in time, you have 32 different options on routes. Okay. So you get about 10% or less of the population that's actually impacted by those different routes. And so if you base your scoring system on that alone versus, hey, I do that and I identify the top 5 routes, you know, now all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more real when you have individual landowners and their time is valuable. And they say, hey, this is serious. This may cross me or it may not cross me. But the odds went from 1 in 30 to 1 in 3. Now, all of a sudden, when you come in, you get a much higher degree of competency of, yes, these things that are impacted. Yeah, we know where the road's at. We know where the house is at. But are there other impacts out there for the commission? So what you're going to hear today is the people that are actually being impacted, and to say, hey, this scores better when it comes to personal input or not as good. What you got is only what you got today, because no one else knows that, hey, it's not, they know now it's not crossing me. And so there may be a more preferential route. It didn't meet that the first time, but especially in rural Kansas, you may only get, you know, 1 or 2 landowners. If they came or didn't come, might make the difference on a 2 mile or 3 mile or 5 mile stretch. And so certainly as the process goes down, you have to make sure that you have the full vision of the impact. And because it changes that way, when you start with that many routes and you fine tune it, you don't get that vision. And so that was my point in that, you know, but if it's only, if the personal impact is 2% of it, it really doesn't matter. If it's 30% of it, it matters. Thanks for your time, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to try online again. Mr. Appleby, why don't you try asking your question?
How am I coming through?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
Oh, darn, I didn't fix my problem.
Yeah.
I'll get it. I'll get it in writing.
I think it's on our end, not on your end, Mr. Appleby. I'm looking at our IT staff to see if they've got any ideas.
Thanks. I'll blame it on Elon Musk.
Oh. Okay. Well, we're gonna need that capability soon so that folks online can make a comment if they wish to. All right, we're gonna go back to in the room. We've got that opportunity now. Sorry, Mr. Appleby, we're gonna try to get back to you. All right, if you'd start with your name and then who you're directing your question to.
I'm not sure who can answer it, but my name's Marcy Lafine, and kind of to follow up with his question, and in addition to the slides, it referred to stakeholders. I am curious if during that process, were any of our elected county officials a part of those stakeholder meetings?
I think I'll turn to Evergy for that since they held the open houses.
Yeah, we reached out to all the state and local county offices, I guess county and city offices as well. I know I talked to Rodney a little bit in the early process of this, just right before the open house down here. I met with Wellington County commissioners and Yeah, I met with Wellington County Commissioners.
Were they invited to those meetings?
Oh, yes, they were invited to every open house that we had. Yep.
No, not open houses, the stakeholder meetings. Stakeholder meetings you referenced. All those different stages that were stakeholders referred to before open houses. It was on the slide
With the,
about the process.
yeah, we reached out to every local entity and got a response back from them about basically what constraints they had in their area that we needed to avoid and what they had going on for road projects so we could be aware of any expansions. But we received feedback from all the local entities.
Okay, I just want to make sure our elected officials are included in the process.
Yeah.
And not just at the tail end. The other question I had that couldn't get answered in the hallway was we're being told that there's a need for a 345 kilovolt transmission line. I asked, what are we currently being serviced with? Nobody could answer that question. To me, if there is a need, then we would know what we have and that what we have is a problem. So I didn't know who could answer that question.
Yeah, locally, you guys have 69 kV out here in the area. Neighborhoods getting fed distribution are probably 12 kV, I believe. But remember, this is a regional line that is it's much more expansive than just Chautauqua County. So that's why we need a 345 kV interconnect. It's really kind of a backbone transmission source for.
Sure.
And Steve.
Yeah, I'll hit on this just a little bit. So the 345 kV voltage is the highest voltage in the Evergy system. It's the predominantly highest voltage across what we call the Eastern Interconnect. So that's the transmission grid from the Rocky Mountains out to the, the Pacific Ocean. I got that wrong. Anyway, out to the ocean in New York. So anyway, it is. Didn't know we were going to have a geography test, but anyway, very, very common, right? So you'll have higher voltages. You'll see 500 kV systems. You'll see 765 kV systems, but they are in load pockets that are a lot higher than what we see here in the Midwest. We may see those types of voltages, some point in the future, but for right now, 345 is the highest voltage we have, and it ties with the system that we have. We don't have to create a new system that's a different voltage than the one we currently have, so it just makes a lot of sense.
Gonna maybe add to that the 345 line is kind of like the interstate system. So you say you get a delivery here in Sedan, Kansas. It's not coming directly off the interstate to you, but it may have came down to I-70 or it may have went through the interstate in Oklahoma, I-44 or whatever. But then it ends up in Sedan, Kansas. The same thing happens with the power. The 345 is our transmission, our interstate system. It's getting it to Wichita. It's getting it to Neosho, Kansas. And then it comes out on 138 or 69 kV and serves Sedan, Kansas and the counties around here.
Thank you.
All right. Do we think we have a fix for online or should we stay in the room? Oh, on phone. All right. Does he want to try to speak into the microphone? Okay, sorry, sir, we're gonna skip you since we've been trying to go to him. All right, let's see if it works.
All right, Mark. Fine.
I have two questions. Are there any federal funds in the project?
Sorry, if you could just repeat your question. We only caught the tail end of it.
Any federal funding in the project?
Okay, the question was, is there any federal funding in the project? And I'll let Evergy address that.
No, there's no federal funding for the project.
Be phase one environmentals completed?
Are the phase one environmentals completed?
No, they are not completed.
Will they be available once they are done?
Will they be available once they are done?
The environmental studies?
Correct.
Correct.
We don't do phase one on transmission.
We need to reach to our gallery here just a second. Why don't you come up here?
And please introduce yourself.
Jessica Keck with Evergy. I manage our permitting group. A phase one is something different. I think you're asking about environmental due diligence. We will do that on the transmission line on the route. It's not completed, but it will be completed prior to construction. We will comply with all federal and state laws and regulations, but we typically don't make those public record, to my knowledge. So, but they will be completed. And we'll submit it all to the federal agencies and the state agencies as well. So it's probably a public record through them.
Thank you. That helps a lot. Thank you.
He said, thank you.
All
Is
right.
that it, Mark?
Thank you. And I'm glad we finally got to you, even with the hiccup. All right, back here in the room, if you just start with your name and your question.
Kevin McFarland. My question is, why was the southern end of Cowley County not surveyed?
The southern end.
Like the south end of Cowley County, why was it not added into your survey area?
Yeah, right up along the border you're talking
Yeah.
about. We looked at that area.
Because it seems pretty wide open, not a lot of houses, things pretty spread out.
Yeah, there were still some homes in there that would have been directly impacted. I believe there was a really small town, very close to the border. I'm trying to remember the name off the top of my head. And then additionally, once we got to, I think it's Highway 77 that comes south out of Arc City.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. There were a handful of houses right there that we would have to buy.
Right.
And last resort is buying a home.
So you'd made the comment that, you use these principles, you stay away from houses, residential, but this line goes within, I want to say 1,000 feet of the hospital north of Arc City, 900 feet of the landing pad for the helicopter, and about 1.5 miles south of the airport, which is where they land jets, not just single engine planes.
Yeah.
And so in this survey and this routing, how was that route decided to go in between the hospital and the runway north of Arc City?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think for airports, 2,000 feet, we got to stay away from airports. Yeah, we have to perform an FAA study for every single one of these lines we put in, but we typically follow a specific radius or certain radius to just stay away from airports.
Gotcha.
But for example, up around Forbes and Topeka, we just build our line short right there west of the airstrip. But it's getting off topic.
Do you think it would be a public hazard to have it within 900 foot of a helicopter landing pad? And I mean, of all the places you could have put it in the county, it seems like that would have been the one area I would have, at least in Cowley County, I would have, said I wouldn't really want it near the hospital or the airport, but that we put it right in between the two.
Yeah, I mean, within a 900 or 1,000 foot of a helicopter pad, something I wouldn't typically be too concerned about. We can always put, everybody hates putting lights on structures, but if we needed to, right there by the helicopter crossing, we could. But we have, I know in Wichita specifically, we've got some transmission lines near hospitals in older parts of town where it's been built in, but hasn't been a problem in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, once this route does get approved, we do have to submit FAA approval permits, and they review all that, and they will come back. If they feel it's unsafe, they will tell us they won't issue that. If they consider our pole height, the existing terrain, the normal flight patterns, and they review all that from a safety perspective. And they have to do the buy-off before we can enter into construction through the FAA permitting process.
The cultural resources part of it that she was asking about, you guys are kind of right on the north end of that Etzanoa research and discovery area.
Can you speak into
yes.
There you go. Yeah, into the microphone a little more.
You guys are kind of right on the north end of that Etzanoa area, the Indian tribe research area there in North Arc City. Is that playing in at all? Are there going to be ecological, or not ecological, but site studies on Indian artifacts, things like that, cultural resources?
Yeah, I believe we identified that area and stayed outside of it.
Okay.
So
you guys are actively trying to stay out of
Yeah.
Etzanoa area. Okay. All right. And to you guys mentioned that you do decide necessity of the line. You do vote on the necessity, and that's already been voted on. Is that correct?
No, I'll let Mr. Grady address that.
Thanks. So that is part of the state statute, is the requirement that the KCC evaluate the necessity for and the reasonableness of the location of the transmission line. I will say there's maybe some question about the interpretation of that statute. Is it the necessity for and the reasonableness of the location of the line? Or are we evaluating the necessity for the line and the reasonableness of the location? I mean, I've heard different interpretations of that, but our view is that we will evaluate the necessity for the transmission line. Is it, at the end of the day, is it a benefit to the state of Kansas? Is there public benefit? The other thing is that we have a public utility certificate requirement in the state, and ultimately transmission line, unless the commission has ruled that you can be a public utility to do that function. Now, we recommended that the commission approve Evergy on a conditional basis to build the transmission line, basically conditional upon whatever the finding is in this proceeding.
Okay. From what I can tell, most of this line does not service Kansas.
So it's
because most of Chautauqua and most of Cowley does not get any power from Evergy. Most of the places that this line is going through do not get service from Evergy.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way to answer that is
Directly,
that
anyway.
all of the power in the state of Kansas ultimately is sourced from the wholesale power market through the Southwest Power Pool.
Right.
And that's the entity that ultimately studied the reliability benefits of this line. So, the specifics are, I mean, it's detailed transmission engineering planning stuff, but ultimately SPP studied the four corner region of Southeast Kansas, Northeast Oklahoma, Southwest Missouri, and Northwest Arkansas. And there were some very severe reliability impacts during a couple really famous winter storms, right? Winter Storm Uri and Winter Storm Elliott. Southwest Power Pool said the transmission infrastructure in this part of the region is insufficient. And if we have another significant, it's not if, but when we have another significant winter storm like that, their assessment was that the infrastructure needs to be bolstered, needs to be more resilient in the area. That's the idea. This line was literally planned and engineered to prevent the worst case scenarios in extreme winter weather. That's what it comes down to.
And the storms you're talking about are the rolling blackouts in Branson, Missouri, correct?
In
2022?
Yes, sir.
Why are we going all the way across the state of Kansas instead of putting a power source closer to the people that need it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. The Southwest Power Pool does evaluate generation alternatives to transmission. But ultimately, a lot of times what you see is, even the most reliable power plants go offline and need maintenance. And so it's not enough to just build a local power plant in an area instead of a transmission line, because what you find is you'd have to build 2 power plants or maybe 3, right? So generation alternatives are something that is considered ultimately during those extreme winter weather events. It's not just interregional transmission transfer from MISO into SPP or from Missouri into Kansas, but power is moving around the grid so significantly that the grid is so stressed that it's, those more local transmission lines can also really affect the reliability of the power system. And that's basically what this line is meant to do. It will take additional stress that is on the system today and redistribute it to these bigger, higher voltage power lines. And, it was planned for Winter Storm Elliott, right, in which power was mostly moving from west to east. But with Winter Storm Uri, from February of the year prior, power was significantly moving from east to west. So it's sort of an example of you build these lines for the storm that you engineer and plan them for, but the next storm won't look like Uri or Elliott, right? So precisely what the reliability benefits are of the line, we'll have to find out once it's in service and actually, improving reliability.
All right, we're at 7 o'clock. I don't want to completely cut off questions if there are some more questions, but want to also move us along so we can get to public comments. So are there any more questions in the room? Go ahead and move up to the microphone. And just anybody remaining that wants to do a question, go ahead and get in line and just hopefully we can be succinct so we can get to the public comments. Go ahead and start with your name.
My name's Sam Buford. Thank you for letting me speak. So I've also seen literature turned out by AEP where the line is going to go from Delaware to Arkansas. Are you aware of that? Okay, so if you're starting northwest and you're going southeast, or you're going southeast and you're starting northwest, whichever way the line goes, I'm convinced that under your scoring methods, you would have by far had the highest scores if you drop down into Osage County. Hardly any houses. I could pick a route without any restricted lands. I could pick a route without any houses. I could pick a route without any irrigation. And I guess my question for Evergy and the commission would be, there's obviously a reason why everybody's avoiding Osage County. And why is one entity scored so much better and given so much more preference than thousands of individual landowners and mineral owners? You come down into Osage County, you're probably dealing with 10 entities for 50, 60 miles. And you're dealing with one person that controls the mineral estate. And so you're really not factoring in all routes, or I'm curious why you didn't try to factor in that route, because it's probably your shortest route. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody can answer this.
Evergy or staff, if you have any response.
Yeah, sure. So part of this was developing an interconnection location first and foremost with AEP, because we don't build lines in Oklahoma and they don't build lines in Kansas. So we had to find a tie-in point. AEP's preference was to stay east of Osage County because we need to get this line in service in 4 years, and federal permitting through that area could drag this out to much, much, much longer than that. It's all federal.
So curious how much it has to do with the
But can you say your name again?
Marcy Lafine.
All right, thank you.
Curious how much it has to do with all the projects in the queue for solar, battery, data, wind, that this route is going.
Oh, yeah, this project has no association whatsoever with new generation.
But your own website all talks about renewables. I mean, when I go on there about Buffalo Flats, you're talking about renewables, so, and about future projects. So just curious.
Yeah.
I mean, when I know firsthand about Sumner County and all of the projects that have been trying to go in there, when I know there's a data that's possibly at the very far end near Garden Plain, when there's solar projects that are being propositioned left and right all along and near these things, why would we not believe this line is more about tying all those things into it? Especially when our need isn't that high, and as this gentleman said, it passes on through.
It's a good question. So let me hit it in a couple different ways. The line we're talking about tonight came out of the 2024 integrated transmission planning process through SPP. And any generator that gets connected to the grid goes through a different process called a generation interconnection agreement. So if I wanted to interconnect a solar farm, a wind farm, a coal plant, a natural gas plant, any kind of plant, it would have to go through a generation interconnection study. And any impact that I had on the grid that wouldn't allow for me to run at my capacity or my maximum generation, I would have to resolve and pay for so that I could. So there are two different studies, two different ways of doing it. The generation interconnection is not part of the integrated transmission process. Our process that produced this line or this project was reliability based for all the reasons that Justin was talking about earlier.
But
All right. we've
once
got-
it's in place, why wouldn't that be all put together?
Can you say that again?
Once a transmission line's in place, wouldn't there be the opportunity then for all those projects, if they came online in the vicinity of the transmission line, to be put on? It may
Yeah.
not be on the radar during this conversation, but the fact they're in the queue tells me they're on the radar.
I would say once the line is built, there'll be more capacity on the grid than there is today. And if that incremental capacity that's added by the new line allows for a generation interconnection to be approved that otherwise wouldn't be approved, that's certainly possible.
All right, we're at 7:08. I really do want to get to public comments, but I see we've got one and maybe,
Ben Allen,
all right.
and I'd like to address Evergy. When you guys got down to your last 5 or 10 routes, were any of the landowners in this room in on the final decision? Or was that a group of y'all in Topeka that analyzed that data and said, this is the way to go?
Yep, we chose that route internally.
Internally, okay. So nobody in this room, as far as landowners, were on that, and nobody, was there anybody from Wildlife and Parks represented on that?
We discussed all the routing alternatives in the entire network with Wildlife and Parks before we performed the routing study.
Okay. To the KCC, I appreciate y'all being down here. We really like open spaces in Chautauqua County. If this thing is going to be built and we can use existing highway and road right of ways instead of just cutting off down through the pasture. I've got 2 landowners that I represent that are going to have a lot of acres underneath this thing, and both of them are dissected all the way across their property. It's going to be quite a land loss to them, not the monetary value, but just the aesthetics of what this country is going to look like after there's a 200-foot wide right-of-way cut down through some of the prettiest country in Kansas. Now, it probably didn't measure, you can't put a dollar value on that, or it's not a cemetery or stuff like that, but those things are really important to the people that are in this room right now. So when you take all this into consideration, we like our open space down here. I don't know, Sam talked about sending the deal to Oklahoma, and one of you told me that that wasn't possible, but I think y'all are just scared of Osage County. So anyway, KCC, we'll be talking to you up there, and we appreciate you being down here, but these people in this room have a lot at stake, and if you can keep it on right-of-ways at this point in time, and I know that creates some difficulties, but step outside the box and let's do something right, okay?
Sounds like we've got some public comments ready to go. Let's go to our last question. You said you had one more follow-up question, and just remind us your name again.
Sam Buford. I guess this would be focused at the commissioners that are here. I realize one's on Zoom and 2 are present, so appreciate your time. But in talking in a response to what the gentleman from Evergy said about the lengthy process of getting federal permitting, how do you all think that an individual permit with individual private landowners should be expedited or shortened or lessened in any way compared to a federal permit?
So I probably should have said this up front. Since we're the judges in this case and we're still hearing all of this evidence and we got to make a decision at the end, we're not going to comment, but I will send it over to our staff because they're formulating their position and recommendation to us. So Mr. Grady, what's your response?
Yeah, thank you. I would say that before this evening's public hearing and the conversations that I've had out in the hallway, we personally haven't considered the idea of, should it go through several hundred miles of the Indian reservation, which I think is what you're referring to, right? South of the Oklahoma border. It's a really good question. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer for you. To be honest, I'm not even sure. I assume no individual state has the ability to grant eminent domain across an active Indian reservation. And And that's probably what Mr. Vetch was referring to in terms of, you know, a protracted federal citing process. That I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you. I mean, I think it's something that needs to be evaluated. I think it probably will be considered and evaluated in our evidentiary hearing. I'm just not sure how much actual experience there is attempting an infrastructure project like that across basically a sovereign nation of a reservation. It's a good question. Well, it could go south of Osage County, further into Oklahoma. I mean, it's a really good question. I don't know if Evergy's ever built a power plant across a reservation in Kansas or not. I mean, it's a good question.
All right, we're at 7:13. I do want to give everybody a little break before we go to the official public comment session. So let's break right now, and we will reconvene at 7:20 for public comments. Thank you all.
Test, test.
Okay, I have 7:20. If folks will start finding their way to their seats.
Test, test,
And if you
test.
want to make a comment and haven't signed up, you can try to find our public affairs staff.
Test, 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 test.
to the border between Kansas and Oklahoma on area has a lot of houses. I'm quite concerned. But the second thing that I would like to comment on is 25 years ago, the Osage Nation proposed a casino on land in Kansas that they owned and called Sacred at the location that is about at the end of where your line starts coming off the Kansas Oklahoma border and across Bronco Road. I make the comment, Mr. T may be able to speak more to this, but it's my understanding that the Osage Nation still comes to perform ceremonies. It's right at the intersection of the Washington County, Osage County line in Oklahoma. That they do this at. I can't imagine that there would not be public comment from them about having a large electrical line right in where where they normally stand to do their ceremony. That's all I have to say. It would be easy enough to look and see. I would like to reserve the rest of the time here for people who are much more affected than me, since my land is across the road.
Thank you very much for your comment. Tyler Bowman.
Hello, my name is Tyler Bowman, 288 Route 26 through Kansas. And I'm here to speak today about the currently proposed Buffalo Flash transmission line, which replaces high voltage lines less than a half a mile from my house, directly through a working branch for over 3/4 of a mile. I'm fourth generation. We are raising the fifth generation of Bowmans at this ranch headquarters. We have been in this location since the mid-1950s. My great-grandfather and great-grandmother raised together. In the early 70s, my grandfather, J.B. Bowman, built the house that me and my family currently live in. Everything for ranch operations is in this location: pens, horse barns, hay barns, etc. I'm telling you all this because it's not like we can pick up and move locations. And for most people, living around a transmission line wouldn't interfere with their daily life too much. I'm not most people. Back in 2007, I had a power line fall on me while I was working in a freak accident. The line fell as I crossed under it. To keep the line from hitting me in the back of the head, I stuck out my left arm and blocked it, and the electricity entered my right arm and right foot, or exited my right foot, making me above elbow empty on the left side, empty on the right. So now I use prosthetics, my electric prosthetics. Every waking second of my life, my electric prosthetics function by reading electric signals produced by muscle movement. This is critical to the functionality of my daily life. Because of the phenomenon known as electromagnetic crosstalk or EMS, my prosthetics malfunction in the presence of standard power lines. So we have power lines, and whenever I walk under to our barn, my hands lost both and both. It's just for a short period because it's very small time. With this 345,000 I don't know what it's going to do to my daily life. I don't know whether I'm going to have issues. I'm going to be able to bottle water or anything whenever I pick it up. So this is going to affect me 24/7. Most of the time I can move away from it, I can mitigate it. Also, there's a phenomenon known that is whenever you are exposed to EMS for a long extended period of time. This was done by the University of Texas, that it amplifies your nerve pains, which fans call it phantom pains. And that's just kind of just me. Now let's get to some of the community impact. The devaluation of property values up to 40% along the entire route and zero benefit to our county or the landowners right now. we will not use this electric or have access to it, our rates won't go down because won't be able to access it. Is this transmission line going to a data center? Because that's what it's going in more detail on, there's a bunch of proposed data centers that are going.
So were you
that are going to
5, 6,
be
or 7, 8?
next fall.
It was 5, 6, but
That's just based on, thank you guys.
Thank you very much for your comment.
if we change it.
All right, I don't see any hands online, so we're gonna stay here in the room. Elizabeth, 4, hope I've gotten that right.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Ward. My intention is not to tell you that you can't use my land, but it is to tell you why, you should adjust how you're using it. So, we've looked at some alternatives that I think would be mutually agreeable with, the commission and everybody. Unrealistic that you have a project that we can support, and so, if you need some of our land, but I want to adjust how it's being utilized. The current route, if you look at the map, it's Todd addressed it actually, that abrupt diagonal that crosses. In that abrupt diagonal, there are 6 homes that are within acres of that line. Specifically, there's 2 homes that are less than 500 feet. And Evergy has stated that you guys try to maintain greater than 500 feet. My home's one of the ones that is less than 500 feet. John Dunham submitted his report that he has assessed the social and economic or social and environmental impacts of the line. When I was doing an open house previously, me and my neighbor came and proposed an alternative route and penciled that in. When I asked John Dunham if he had included that in his report, he said he had not assessed that, and Evergy did acknowledge that they did remember the write-in, but he did not assess it in the report to see if it was a viable option. Sorry, my kid's eating right now. So I'm going to draw a little bit of attention to the value of my home, specifically what I find valuable for our property. When we purchased our property, we have a north section, and that's where you guys are proposing to cut across. In that north section is where the majority of our livelihood is existing. So we've got our agriculture that's here, also our home, and then what I find the most is the safety of our property. We're at the end of the dead end lane, no one comes down there unless they know that they're coming down there. If I can turn my kids outside, they can go play, and it's totally safe, totally fine. This proposal from Evergy not only temporarily asked me to compromise on some of those things that I value, but it asked me to permanently compromise on it as well. Whereas if you would, if the commission would assess moving that line directly west, so continuing down to Kansas at the corner, and then jutting up in your northwest, whether you want to do a diagonal or a 90-degree, you actually, if you did that, would be dodging 6 homeowners. And so you would only have to work, I guess I could be dodging 4 of them. 2 of us don't work with myself and Eric, okay? But you don't have to have it on the south side of our property, it doesn't do the diagonal, okay? And you wouldn't be your own. And so if you continue further west, there's
the microphone is the laptop.
numerous of them that are open. Recognize that we love that for the agriculture side of things, and we're talking about the health aspect of EMF. There are studies out there, so specifically, I remember seeing one from August 2025 that's conducted by the Environmental Research Foundation. It's published on Science Direct that talks about there are results that support that there is a link to acute childhood leukemia for children under the age of 5 that live within less than 200 meters of high voltage lines, which would fall under that. So I'll submit a public comment as well in writing, and I will reference that study so you can see it. But I do have 2 kids under the age of 5, and that is a daunting thing for me, and it's a risk that technically as Evergy is saying that they're willing to take, but me as another. So I think the commission will looking.
Thank you. And Ms. Orr, if you're willing to share with our staff your exact address, just so they can help locate where that's at.
Yeah, it's 167, and then there's a space for your address, 2951 Lane, 9 Takes. And actually, that reminds me, Ms. Todd referenced the Osage and the sacred land. My land is burned up, so my land is in text. We both have, there's a trail on the south border that's considered historic trail, and then the actual treaty posted on text.
Thank you very much. All right, we're gonna stay in the room. Rick Cooper.
Yeah, Rick, this is 226 Eagle Cedar Bay. I guess it's kind of a common thing. according to your story, the housing was the highest, number 10. There's about 400 feet between my house and the road, and they're coming through there with 175 foot easy. On a mile later, they're getting closer to the house. Out there, we're pretty sparse. It's a mile between houses either way. I don't understand why when there's a mile space between houses, you go through people's yards. I have the same health concerns, that was another one of your scoring issues, was health issues. I have a 3-year-old and 8-year-old live with me. I'm a little concerned about them too. I guess that's it.
Thank you very much for your comment. Tommy Ross.
My name is Tommy Ross, excuse me, sorry. My name is Tommy Ross. I'm at 275 Road 24 in Peru, Kansas. I'm not an eloquent speaker like Mr. Bowman is, so I'm just gonna wing it, but I just wanna put on the record as to my opposition to this route. I'm not a engineer by any means, but I think there are several other routes that make a lot more sense. Back to the rating that a lot of people have talked about. I think one thing that wasn't taken into consideration is went across a lot of these ranches, cut them in half. I have a small ranch, but I think it's beautiful. I think this whole country is beautiful, but you're cutting my place right, it's in the middle. And although it's not that far from my house, one option to me that makes more sense is to go down Highway 166. That would eliminate probably 80 or 90% of the ranches being cut across in here. The state owns the land. I don't know why that. I never saw that in the proposals. The other option to me, which I talked to the Evergy guys, it's 133 miles. If you went from point A to point B as the crow flies, that's 101 mile. That's 20 some miles savings. That's 3 million. I don't know, whatever it costs a mile. That's a lot of money in my book. But you can say.
They said it's not an option, but to me, it would be an option. Going straight from point A to point B is a better option than what you're doing now. I just don't feel like cutting a person's property in half took priority as it should have. A lot of these guys in here have a lot bigger, beautiful places, bigger than mine, and they're getting cut in half as well. So one other thing that I would like to ask, I would like somebody to state on the record that this line is not going to supply a data center somewhere. I would like somebody to come out and say that. I get the fact that we're trying to improve the grid. I get all that. But will somebody state that we're not sending this power for a data center?
Well, if you want to address it, you can. I was going to have my staff talk to you in the hall afterward, if that's okay.
It's past my bedtime, so
So just real quickly, I mean, this line was not planned to serve a data center. That's not the purpose of what it was engineered or planned for. I can't tell you that there won't ever be a data center somewhere in Oklahoma, but it's not being planned to serve a data center, right? Will a data center at some point be added somewhere in Oklahoma? I can't say that it wouldn't be, because I'm not a utility regulator in Oklahoma, right? But I can say on the record, and Evergy would too, data centers were not a part of the planning or the engineering that went into the design of this line. They weren't. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you very much. I would ask you to really and truly reconsider the route that it's going through, because this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I know I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I think I could do a better job of getting the line from here to there. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. All right, Sandy Hawthorne.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us. My name's Sandy Hawthorne at 2919 Bronco Road. It's on your grid on your maps outside. It's in section 13 or grid 13. It's the last. No, first I want to point out that your open house in July, I did receive the notice, but I only received it about, I think it was 2 or 3 days before the meeting. I did not have time to plan and come. So I didn't get to attend that first meeting, the informational. And I've spoken to other people here and they didn't get them timely either. So, of course, my biggest concern is cutting diagonally across our properties. I'm one of the 6 houses that Ms. Orr spoke of. The commission spoke earlier about one of your main concerns is you try to stay on the edge of these properties, and that supposedly was looked at. I wish that you would look at it again, because it's not. There's easily properties that you can stay on the boundaries of those and not divide these ranches and farms in half. If you would relook at that, please, and see if something could be done. And this is a question, but it only came up in what I've listened to in the comments. My concern is, I think most of us are on Caney Valley Co-op Electric. Will it actually receive power from this high power transmission?
Or Mr. Vetch, would you like to address that? I usually try to just stick to comments this time, but I think we can.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of back up here a little bit on what Andy had said earlier. There won't be a direct line from the Delaware substation to the Buffalo Flat station and then into the co-op here in the county. Will any power that gets transmitted across this line end up in the county? The reality is that I don't know the answer to that. I would say at some point it definitely could, but I would say a lot of the energy that gets transmitted across our entire transmission system does end up in this county. If I isolate this single line and say yes or no, I just can't do that at the moment, but I can tell you that the power here that's in the county comes from our transmission system. This line in the future will be a piece of it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Ben Allen. Oh, okay. Marcy Laffer.
Marcy Lafine, 215 Road 11. This is not on my property. I speak because I'm concerned for the area and the community and how this is impacting us. I do wonder if the National Electrical Safety Code will be followed, if the International Electric Engineering laws will be followed. Will the easements, will Evergy have the discretion to increase easements up to 1,000 feet, as I've known they've done them to do other landowners in previous scenarios? Those are 3 points I have.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael, is it Andra?
Thank you, commissioners, for this public forum. My name is Michael Andrew. I live near Wichita in Sedgwick County. My concern is with Evergy will become a dominant co-owner of the people's land that this crosses. We have real estate interests in all four of the counties involved. We were in one of the initial routes, but we are no longer. We've had dealings with Evergy and their collaborators on 8 properties in the past. My concern is the landowner abuse by Evergy's real estate acquisition teams. Evergy and its predecessors and collaborators have acquired many thousands of acres of easements without compensation to landowners. All of them regularly describe a narrow right-of-way for their transmission line, but in the easement itself include ingress, egress, control of use, and sometimes right to pledge or mortgage without any compensation to the landowners and on the entire tracts of land, not the narrow right-of-way. Evergy has practiced this type theft of property rights since at least 1953. Evergy and or its collaborator, Sunflower Electric Power Corporation, on their 70-mile-long Harper to Milan 138 kV line, acquired 24,000 acres of easements, but only paid the landowners for 840. Sunflower subsequently mortgaged those farms, entire farms, for $2.33 billion. Not the 100-foot right-of-way, but those people's entire farms. 4 of those farms are mine. Evergy has transferred some of its longtime lines to Sunflower and now carry those $2.33 billion mortgages. This line, the easements in this line will absolutely, without question, be transferable. Evergy has enlarged lines without proper easements. One such transmission line, which affects a property I own, Evergy installed a 69 kV line on a 3-foot right-of-way, which resulted in encroachments on 34 landowners with trespass incidents. We would like the commissioner's help to have that line removed. The Harper to Milan line I referred to crossed 4 of our farms. Compensation was only offered on 16 acres when 1,600 acres were encumbered. That resulted in an eminent domain case that has now lasted 8.5 years with Sunflower, who's a collaborator of Evergy. That case is 2017 CV118. The judge has ruled Eminent Domain Procedure Act abuse by the utility. As owner of the largest radio station in the area, US 107.9, it has been a mission of mine to enlighten my fellow landowners about the unethical tactics these utilities use to steal your property rights. I have run hundreds of public service announcements about these evil tactics. The fellow landowners need to read the easements presented to you very carefully. Remember, the devil's in the details. And also, several of the people I know here questioned Evergy about the facts of my radio commercials, and they said they're not true, they're lies. Tonight, they said that. Everything is true. They transferred lines. Those lines now carry $2.33 billion worth of mortgages. There's a 92-year-old lady that wants to sell her farm. She cannot sell her farm now because it's encumbered with a $2.33 billion mortgage. She cannot give clear marketable title. So thank you for your time, and let's please organize.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andra. Next name I have is Steve Clark. Well, you got your name called. Now's your chance. All right. We'll move on. Bill Kelly.
My name's Bill Kelly. I don't have an address. I live so far in the country up here. I got a box number, P.O. Box 98. No, excuse me, P.O. Box 124. This company on the left, I don't know any of them other than what I've heard tonight. They're independent. You all work for the government, am I correct? We all pay your bills, and they're going to help us pay those bills, the way I understand it. I've been up here for 15 years working on a dream that's been for 60 years. Now, everybody here has a different situation. Some are high, some are low, and this and that. But I've had a dream for 60 years to do what I'm doing. And some of these people know where my place is. My front gate, where this line's going through, is my front yard. It's mowed, it's trimmed, it's taken care of. And I have a little lake on in about a quarter of a mile that two of my kids were going to build a home where they could see the lake in the trees and so on like that. So the transmission line doesn't work a bit for me, guys. I've never run out of electricity. I built my place with a generator and hauled water for $4.50 a thousand right in town. So I can still do that. And I pay Caney a lot of money for my electric, but I don't want that line through my property because it does split my property almost in half. You can look at your map. It's wrong. 166 comes right down the highway if you run that way and go down here to Caney, take your right turn, go to Highway 10, take your left turn, you're at Delaware. Or you go to the Osage and come straight up that way. One left turn after you get to the Osage, you go right into Delaware. Is Oklahoma going to benefit from this, or is Kansas going to benefit from this? Who's going to make the money? You guys? That'll help pay that debt they're talking about. But somebody's got to be making money out of this to want to do this. I don't know that anybody here in Chautauqua County has ever run short on electric. Everybody out of Cedarville does a pretty good job for us. I have one post on my property because I don't want any electric post. I had to buy 10 to get my post. Everything I have is underground. Now, we have some oil, it's underground. But I don't want pump jacks. I don't want any solar. I don't want any windmills. And I don't want any cell towers. When I came here, you couldn't see a cell tower from anywhere on my porch. Now, in Oklahoma, somebody's making money with the cell tower. If you guys come in and put these giant electric lines in here, with all the poachers we have, we're going to get somebody killed out here because they'll use it for a deer stand. I mean, that's how good they are. And you guys can tell me, you're in it to make money, which everybody, I don't mind anybody making money. I have to work every day to make money to pay for this ranch. I'm still trying to get my dream done. But you cannot just take one person's situation, and mine's, very, very strong to me. I'm that 100%. I'm not 2% or what. I'm 100% for Bill Kelly not to have that line going across there, and also for my family. And if you stop and think about it, it has been mentioned, if you put those lines through there and you make me go, is this a condemnation suit where you take from me and give to all? I mean, I've been through that in Tulsa on Highway 75, which I'm fortunate or non-fortunate to own a piece of property in Oklahoma. And on that property, adjoining me, is the GRDA. They have 2 sets of lines. The property's been there for 50 years. Nobody will buy it because of those lines are on there. I'm fortunate that they're not on my property that I bought there, but they're on the west side and they're on the south side. And the other thing about running this electric over to Delaware, Oklahoma has one of the biggest power plants there is right there at Lake Oologah. How come we got to come from this way to go that way? And it's shorter distance to Delaware to the Oologah Lake than it is coming this way. So there's just a few things I don't understand, which that's normal. All right, what about my taxes? I'm going to come in here and everything I've improved there, Chautauqua County has taxed me on it. Well, you're going to take it where it's not going to be improved. My property value is going to go down, or my taxes going to go down? Can you all answer that? No. So in all the work, and I know y'all got a job to do just like we all do, but it's just
It wasn't me. Time, no. Do we have an alternate microphone or? Oh, okay, we're swapping batteries. Just hold on, because they can't hear you online. We want to make sure this goes out on YouTube. Okay, here they come.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Again, can you guys answer that question? Who's going to benefit? Oklahoma, that's where it's going to. You're going to cut through Kansas one way or the other. Can you answer me? Who's going to make the money? You are, but it's going to benefit Oklahoma. And I have land in Oklahoma too, but I'm asking this for Chautauqua County because I love this place up here. And everybody that I've ever dealt with up here is just wonderful people. But everybody's got a different situation. And I'm hurting on this deal right here, real bad, because it goes right through my front gate. And my front gate is mowed, manicured, just like your yard is, I hope, in Kansas or Wichita or wherever you live. And anybody that's gone by my place, they know it. So you're taking that away, doing that when 2.5, 3 miles, you can be right down 166 or take it from Dexter, wherever that Buffalo is, and run over to Osage and come that way. And you're going to save so many people here from having so much distress and everything like that. I don't know that somebody asked you, does this hurt the cattle? You know, how much liability and how much bonded are you guys? If you're in debt, it can be pretty hard to bond you that much. So we got to make sure if somebody climbs up there and falls off that thing, and there's poachers everywhere around this country because they're crazy about deer hunting. If someone falls off that tower, is Bill Kelly liable for it or are you liable for it? Yes or no? Nobody can answer that? So these are just some small things, but they're big things to a one-man shop here. Again, if I'm dealing with the oil company, they're going to pay me a little royalty. I get money. If I have an oil well, if I have this wind farm, I get money. If I have the cell tower, I get money. What are you going to pay me? You got to pay a lot because I'm sitting here going to lose money because my property can't sell to somebody that wants to have a piece of property privately. If I want to stay with all the people, I can go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're loaded with people. Or I go to Wichita, Coffeyville. I want this place out here private. I have one electric pole on the place. Everything else is underground. All I can say is y'all are making a big mistake coming down the highway. I mean, coming through our property instead of going down the highway. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. We are gonna now go, I still don't see any hands online, so we're gonna stay in the room. Cameron Williams. Oh, okay. Another one they forced to sign up, huh? Rodney Shaw. Okay. And, okay, this is the last name I have. Is it John Ost? Tom Ost? Is that right? Okay, all right, well, that's all the names I have on my sheet. But before we conclude, let me just make one last call. If there's anybody here, we do have a lot of other ways to make comments, but if there's anybody here that wants to make a live comment, now's your chance. Go ahead. And just give your name and place of residence.
Hi, my name's Joshua Roundtree. I live at 170 North Drury Road in Wellington, Kansas. I'm sorry if I kind of dived in on your meeting here, but this is the one I could make from my career. I worked for the railroad. This is not going on my property. It's going directly across from my property. My house is I'm 175 feet off the road, and they're going to put it on the other side of the road. So, we're probably talking less than 400 feet from my daughter's bedroom. My wife is a triage nurse for Stormont Vale out of Topeka. She uses the Wi-Fi, and that seems really, really minute to what I've heard tonight. And I really hate to say anything, but the fact is that this is in our homes, and I don't know. Mr. Andrews from Sumner County, I know he's got property down there. From my house, I can see the wind farm at Harper that's 30 miles away. They put up another 150 windmills to the east of me, 7 miles away. And I can see the ones at Medford that are 40 miles away. And, I'm not just sitting here saying, hey, I don't want this thing in my view. I'd just like to be able to have my kids play out in the front yard and not worry about, are they going to have some damage as girls from their reproductive system of the electromagnetic stuff coming off this power line that I don't even know about? And the thing is, I hate to just have that happen one day and go, I didn't try to do a thing about it. And I got the invitation to the open houses, and I got this piece of paper that showed the preferred routes. I didn't find where they were on a section map. And then about, I don't know, November, I got the one that showed it basically going across from my house. And I'm no different than anybody else. I'm just here protecting my family. And, when I did this thing with this house, we bought a 100-year-old house. We put a new house out there in 2017. I had to go through the city of Wellington because I'm zone city. And I measured my setbacks. They were supposed to be 75 feet off the road, and I doubled it. And now you're putting a power line in, and I can't move that house any further back. If I do that, I have to pick up everything that I did, move my water lines just to get away from you guys. And you're coming in our neighborhoods, and I don't really think that's, I don't know where you're avoiding. I'm the same with these people. You could go down 160 highway, and you can go 1.5 miles, and you don't even have to cross almost anybody's house. But instead, there's 3 houses affected south of me, and then it's my house. And my closest neighbor's 1 mile, but it's not very hard to feel pretty invaded on this thing, especially when you've invested, in your land, in your home, and you built it, and you're worried about what it's going to do to your kids. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that comment. I see we've got one more. And just start with your name, place of residence.
Hi, my name is Amy Jarbo, and I didn't plan on talking tonight. I'm actually not within the line of these transmission lines. I was actually coming in support of ranchers, friends, and there's also Osro Falls Cemetery beautiful country cemetery. Honestly, in my eyes, it's the most beautiful cemetery that you could ever see. You can see down the valley. It's just out in the country. It's peaceful. Now there's going to be a transmission line running straight up to it. All we're going to see whenever we look to the west is transmission line. Whenever we look to the south, we're going to see a transmission line. And we actually measured, and because of the way we have our parking for our cemetery, it actually kind of dips into the pasture a little bit. There's actually a fence. There's no other place for us to put our parking. And I believe it measured about 70 feet from your yellow line. So like the one lady pointed out, that's not showing your boundaries or your guys' easements. So whenever people come and they're having their picnics or they're meeting with their family, people sit there and talk for an hour after they're done. They're going to be sitting underneath the line, exposed to whatever ailments that might come from it. So that is a very big concern of mine. I also wanted to bring up that somebody said something about the productivity or how it affects the cattle. And there actually are studies that show that it affects the productivity, the reproduction. Now, obviously, you've got some of your bigger pastures, the cattle will get away, but we all know they like to gather around structures, they'll rub on it. And so how do you know it's not affecting your productivity? And what will you do about that for the people that have pastures with cattle in them? What are you going to do for the people that have children, like they were talking? How about the people that are elderly and maybe they're going to sell? And so you're taking out the possibility that a young family starting out might want to buy that property, because who is going to want to live beside these lines? And I'm sorry, I don't know why my voice is shaking so much. And then this lady right here brought up the data centers, and they actually released a deal with Oklahoma, and there are actually quite a few data centers and other things that are going in. One of them is pretty close to Nowata, and they were like showing them all over the area. So I can't believe that there's not ulterior motives to bringing this down there. And I want to bring up the fact that this room is full of ranchers and landowners that have been here for generations, some of them for 100 years or more. And this is not what our grandparents, our great-grandparents wanted for this land. We want to be able to go out and see the big view. I want to go out in my pastures. I don't want to see a line. I don't want to see anything that resembles civilization. And I don't want to have to worry about my cattle. I don't want to have to worry about my children. And that's what you're making these people do. You're making them have to worry about their children, about their livelihood, about their cattle. And I feel like there's better ways, like they were saying 160, or maybe let the deal that's coming up in Coffeyville supply the energy going on to Arkansas.
All right, thank you. Looks like we got another hand. Go ahead. And again, just start with your name, place of residence.
Be short. Cody Collier, 179-2951 Lane. I'm on that last leg that goes into Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Agree with everybody's concerns, but there's 5 homes there that depend on shallow water wells. I don't know how deep the holes are that you're going to dig, but I'm sure it's more than a corner post depth. I was just concerned that it might damage our water wells. Thank you.
All right. Raise your hand. Any additional questions in the room? IT, can we put up the slide on the additional ways to make comments? Go ahead, sir. And just begin with your name, place of residence.
Dorsey Mathis, and I'm 350 Road 22. So I've got a question strictly for the Evergy team. So,
well, just a reminder, we're in public comment now, not question session.
Okay.
So you can make a comment. For questions, I'm guessing people are going to be willing to stick around after staff, Evergy.
And maybe I'll have to do that. My
Yeah.
question was, what is, I'm assuming that your crew, their crew, they've been on multiple projects like this. What is the average reduction in property values that we can expect? Is that 20%, 30%, 40%? I mean, unless this is the first time anybody here's been involved with it, there's got to be some idea what the impact will be. So I'd like to hear a number if somebody's got one. Thank you.
I'll let folks catch you after the session. Okay. Any more people want to make live public comments? Okay. Seeing none. I do want to remind everybody that the public comment period is open until 5 p.m. on January 23rd. There were materials handed out, and you can also see it on the slide here that outline all the different ways that you can submit comments. You didn't have to make them tonight. And those written comments or comments made over the phone will carry the exact same weight as comments that were made at the public hearings. Finally, a reminder, we will hold an evidentiary hearing on this matter on March 11th and 12th, beginning at 10 a.m. in our first floor hearing room at the KCC headquarters in Topeka. And that hearing will also be broadcast on the KCC's YouTube channel. And the commission will issue a final decision in this matter on or before May 13th. Before I conclude, I see a hand raised. Is this a public comment? Okay. Rhetorical question, it sounds like, as a public comment.
So during the question period that we had earlier, you all said we're going to defer from answering that question. You keep welcoming comments. May I submit a question before January 23rd and actually get an answer from you all or Evergy? Thank you.
Well, I will answer that question. I know our staff is willing to talk to the public at any time. So you can contact, I think our public affairs information is at the bottom there, and they can connect you in with our technical staff. And I don't have Evergy's material, but I would bet there's some out there where you can find a contact information from them. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This does conclude our public hearing tonight. Thank you for your comments and your attendance. We're adjourned. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty. I don't. There's a Taco Bell. I'm saying that.